Now, the manifestation of energy is, in my view, it starts with the focusing of energy on a point, because when we see something grow, a seed gets planted, and so that it starts out, this movement of actual physical growth starts from something very small and grows something into very large. But the energy input has, so to speak, had to focus down into the small in order then to expand again into the large. And so this idea of the thing, as it were, which vibrates at certain frequencies, that comes from realms. Viktor talked of the fourth and fifth dimensions of being, was the formative energies which created the physical form through their concentration. Now, perhaps an analogy to show how the effect of higher energies function on lower energies is if I say, for instance, that the solar wind comes out from the sun, it impinges on the atmosphere of the Earth, and at that point there are certain thermal and dynamic interactions which creates clouds and starts to move the air around the Earth. Now the air, so I've come down already from one level, from the solar wind to the air of the Earth. But the air, the winds moving around the Earth affect the oceans. And their movement across the oceans, we create waves in the oceans. And so I've gone down yet another level. From the air, I've now gone down to the oceans and to the water. And right at the bottom of the sea, or near shores of the sea, then this water creates ripples in the sand. Okay, so that you have a progression of formative energies which come down to manifest themselves in, so to speak, physical reality, which in this case is the sand, so to speak. So you can see that how the sun's energy finally can manifest itself in physical ripples in the sand, but it's very difficult to see how physical ripples in the sand would finally manifest themselves in the sun's energy, so that these higher dimensions of being, these higher dimensions of energy, are responsible for creating physical form. And so you can see that the physical form, for instance, of these shells here, starts at a point, that's where the focus of energy is, and then they all manifest themselves as they go out this way. This energy also, strangely enough, and this is only perhaps a happy accident, but I hit a piece of glass on the edge with a hammer. So I actually focused the energy at one point, and I did create the same sort of shell form. That just might have been that, but I thought it was fun. Now again, according to Viktor, the motion natural motion has three fundamental ingredients, types of motion. There's orbital motion and rotational motion and what he called circulational motion. And those are easiest, most simply explained in the planetary system, or by our Mother Earth, because the Mother Earth orbits around the Sun. At the same time, she rotates about her own axis, and at the same time, the magnetic energies flow through it. So we have three systems of energy, and Viktor called this the original motion. And in a sense, it was the primordial motion, but it was also the form-originating motion. It was the motion which was responsible for creating physical matter. And again, this type of motion could be further subdivided according to him, and this is where we come now a bit more to the difference between centrifugal force and centripetal force, because he had, we'll go for one side first. This is what he called axial radial motion, and this is a movement where it starts at the center on the axis and moves out towards the outside, towards the radius. So you start in the center and you gradually move out to the outside. And with this form of motion, then the friction increases with increasing velocity. So in a system like this, in order to keep it rotating, you always have to put in more and more and more and more energy. Whereas with the opposite system, and the keywords for axial radial motion are disintegrating, decelerating, dissipating, destructive, divergent, loosening, friction-inducing, and diffuse power is noise. It's not harmonic. On the other hand, the other system is radial axial motion, which means you come in, so to speak, radially, or from the outside towards the inside, towards the central axis. And this is the process whereby energy is concentrated to form, to create something, or to produce power, or to produce energy. It's the same movement, obviously, as the vortex. And the key words for that are consolidating, accelerating, integrating, contracting. And the concentrated power is silence. Now, if you all go into the forest, there's the most immense creative energy at work, but it's extremely quiet. All these molecular and atomic interactions, all the growth that is happening, but it's quiet. So that the concentration of energy is creative. And I think probably anybody who writes books or composes music, or they need to have some silence, because otherwise there's no concentration up here. Once you get to the noise, then that's all had it, unless you have you're very gifted about concentrating your thoughts. Again, this spiral phenomenon is seen in the planetary system. This is actually a movement of all the planets over one full cycle of Saturn, so that you can see that even the normal presentation of the planets, where we're shown in an atlas as just being a sort of dinner plate-like flat thing with all the planets tucked around it, in fact it's also a vortex moving through space, so that at no point in space is the Earth anywhere that it's ever been before. And so that all the conditions are electromagnetic and other energies, cosmic and so on, at any point are always different, so that anyone born, for instance, under those conditions has to, by that very token, be different from anybody else, so that there can be never any true repetition of the identical, because that would be a waste of energy, something which has already been done. If nature is an evolutive system, then something which has already been done, you don't want to do again, because you've done it. So you only learn, something only evolves by changing and transforming. And I think that one of the problems with our society today is that we try to fix things instead of allowing them to flow. It's becoming more flowing than it was, but there was tremendous break on any changing in ideas and so on. Now, this energy process, the energetic process, as we discussed a little earlier, is always the interaction between two antitheses, so that you have matter and spirit. Together they make the unity. Some of me is matter, some of me is spirit, and the combination of the two are me. At the same time, quantity times quality is also equal to unity, because each of us one here has different quantity, but the defining thing between us all, is, apart from the shape, is the quality. And so we are the sum total of the multiplication of our quantity times our quality. Nature doesn't add things, she always multiplies things, because you cannot add two things together if they're not the same. As no two things are identical, you can't say there are two of this, because there's only one. There's only ever one. And in the same way, there's only ever one in the answer between these things. Because if you take the equation 1 over n times n equals 1, n is any whole number. So 1 over 2 times 2 is equal to 1. Half is times 2 is 1. 1 over a million times a million is always 1. So you have thesis, antithesis, and the synthesis is the unity between them. And on this you can also see all the ones under red principally are the male-oriented ones, which Viktor Schauberger claims are the ones, once they get too powerful, then they're responsible for destruction. The blue ones are essentially the more female-oriented ones, and the blue ones have to predominate if evolution is to evolve rather than devolve, because if the red side getting up on top, I'll explain this a bit better. You see, oxygen, as he said, he thought was a lower form of sunlight, because it was the inseminator. It was that element which provoked growth or provoked decay. It could do one or the other. Now, under certain conditions, oxygen becomes passive. In water, it becomes passive once you have reached a temperature below about 9 degrees centigrade. I think that's about 48 Fahrenheit, if I remember rightly.